Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Tapping In live webinar. Today, we're on part 4 out of 6, and we're looking at how businesses and organizations can tap into this amazing market that has been so undervalued and so underserved for so long. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. 30-Foot Drop acknowledges the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise the continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to them and their cultures, and to elders both past and present. We must always remember that under this concrete and tarmac, this land is, was and always will be traditional Aboriginal land. We would also like to acknowledge the Department of Communities, Disability Services for funding this and many other initiatives. Without their support, so many projects such as the 2 Wise Monkeys series of live webinars would never actually see the light of day, and as a community we would be so much poorer for it. So this webinar is part of the Realities and Advantages of Access and Inclusion grant awarded to 30-Foot Drop as part of the Information Linkages and Capacity Building projects, capacity building grants of 2018 to 2019. Quick bit of housekeeping. Now, unfortunately, we don't actually have the resources to monitor all of our live streams during the sessions. So if you want to ask us any questions or interact with us as we go, please head to www.30footdrop.com.au/live and use the chat boxes there. Now, we're going to be covering a lot of information in a short amount of time, especially today. Webinar 4 is jam-packed full of amazing information. Okay, so I really encourage you guys, where possible, avoid any distractions, okay? Put your phone on silent and bits and pieces like that. Now, we'll also be recording this session and posting it on our YouTube and Vimeo channels. So if you can't actually attend all of today, or you're wanting to catch up or review any of the content that we've gone over, they'll be found there. They will take approximately 24 hours to get up to be uploaded on there, but they will be there for you to have a look at. We'll also be referencing research throughout today's webinar. Any research that we mentioned today is actually going to be able to be found, the full documents of them, is able to be found on the 30-Foot Drop Digital Resource Library. Okay, so head to the 30-Foot Drop webpage and have a look at that, and there is some amazing stuff in there. At the end of this webinar, we have a very short survey for attendees to complete. Please, please, please take the time to fill this out, as it really helps us, okay? It's 6 questions, 30 seconds, done and dusted. Allow me to introduce myself. For those that don't know me, I'm Ben. I am Managing Director here at 30-Foot Drop and your Wise Monkey for today. I am See No Evil. Now, I'm See No Evil because it is very obvious that I have an impairment or disability. I'm a C5 quadriplegic, and the fact that I need a wheelchair to get around everywhere kind of gives that away. But that's why I'm See No Evil, because by the end of today, or by the end of this session, with the information that you gain, or by the end of this webinar series, even better, you will gain the information and skills that you need to see no evil about disability and impairment. My co-presenter Lisa, who does some of the webinars as well, she is Hear No Evil. Now, I'm not going to ruin her story because I think it's absolutely amazing, but she has an invisible impairment. And the thing with these sort of impairments or disabilities is that unless somebody explains it to you and tells you about them, you would never even realise. So that's why she's Hear No Evil. Okay, and the aim of today's webinar and this whole webinar series is that when people gain the information that we have here to show, that they will hear no evil about disability and impairment. But wait, isn't there normally 3 wise monkeys? So who do you think the third's going to be? It's going to be you guys. You are going to become Speak No Evil, okay? Because with the information that you gain at these webinars, you'll head back out into society speaking no evil about disability and impairment. So, how are we going to get you started on the path of the wise monkey? Well, there is a lot to learn about people with impairment. And excuse me, I just realised my desktop audio is on and that notification came through to you guys. There we are. And there we are. Okay, Apologies for that. That was a little bit unprofessional. So how are we going to get you started on the path of the wise monkey? So there's a lot to learn about people with impairment and how you can increase your business by attracting them. Okay. Now, we'll actually be looking at the 3 main areas of need that most businesses can improve on and use to tap into this market. And these are accessibility, universal design, and diverse marketing. Okay, now once we've covered all of this information, and like I said, there is a lot in there to cover, okay, but afterwards we're actually going to do a little bit of an open forum where you guys can ask any questions that you feel haven't been answered throughout the session. Now you'll notice that there is very little written content on our slides. This is because you're here to interact with me, your presenter, okay? And to facilitate this, and also to facilitate our teaching method, okay, I encourage you to head over to www.30footdrop.com.au/live and enter any questions that you've got there, okay? Now, when I say feel free to ask any questions as we go, I really, really mean it. Okay, 30 Foot Drop, we're all about educating the community through open, honest conversations. Okay, so ask anything you want. They don't have to strictly be on What's Today. You can ask about anything, okay? I'm here to answer it. I am here at your beck and call for the next 55 minutes. All right, now before we get into the meat of today, I want to go over and review some terminology because this will help to reduce any confusion and ensure understanding. Basically, there are some words that I will be using throughout the session that may confuse you, okay, because we've been using the words wrong, okay? So the first one, sorry, itchy head. Ugh. The first one is the difference between disability and impairment, okay? Now, these are very different things, okay? And the best way to start it off is by explaining to you first up what is an impairment, okay? An impairment is an injury, illness, or congenital condition that causes or is likely to cause a loss or difference of physiological or psychological function, okay? To simplify that language, your impairment is your medical diagnosis. It is how you are different from the norm, okay? So, for example, my impairment is that I'm a C5 quadriplegic with post-traumatic stress in remission. That's how I'm different from the rest of society, how I function differently, okay? But that's not my disability, okay? A disability is actually really different, okay? A disability is actually the loss or limitation of opportunities to take part in society on an equal level with others, okay? And this is often due to social and environmental barriers, okay? So if you actually take the word disability and look at the word itself, okay? To disable something is to make it unable to complete a task, okay? So when you disable somebody through putting barriers in the way, okay, that is the disability. So for example, steps disable me from being able to get into your shop and spend money. Hopefully that has made sense. Now the next word that we're looking at, or the next definitions that we're looking at, is the difference between access and inclusion. Now a lot of businesses talk about access and inclusion as in it's being one complete word. Sorry, I don't know why these notifications are still coming through to you guys. Allow me to mute. Okay, a lot of businesses think of access and inclusion as one homogeneous lump, but it's not. There are actually two completely different terms, okay? So first up, access. Access refers to the removal or reduction of barriers, both physical and attitudinal, to participation in the activities and functions of a community. At its core, access focuses a lot on the physical world around us and is easily assessed with a checklist, okay? Yet access are all those easy modifications, and because it's so easy to assess, a lot of businesses just focus on that, okay? Because there are standards, there are checklists, there are. It's just so easy to say, to look at a building or to look at a business and go, yes, that's accessible, or no, that's not. Inclusion, on the other hand, okay, where access is physical, or a lot to do with physical, inclusion is a lot to do with the psychological. So inclusion is a psychological state of being and is the process whereby every person, okay, now bear in mind when I say every person, inclusion is not just impairment specific, okay? So when I say every person, I'm talking irrespective of age, impairment, gender, religion, sexual preference, or nationality, okay? So impairment is really a lot wider than just access, or just impairment, sorry. So it's a process whereby every person who wishes to can participate fully in all aspects of an activity or service in the same way as any other member of the community. Hopefully that has all made sense to you. Now, if it hasn't and you have any queries, please head over to www.30footdrop.com.au/live, okay, and use the Q&A box there, or the chat box there, to ask any questions that you have. But for now, let's get on with content. So first up, let's have a look at accessibility and how focusing on or making accessibility a priority at your business can help to attract people with impairment and increase your business. Now, when people talk about accessibility, the first thing that pops into most people's minds is to do with physical accessibility. So these are things like ramps, accessible toilets, parking spots. Okay, now these are all really important, but there is so much more to accessibility than just these physical parts. So I've got 6 really easy and important ways that businesses can increase their accessibility. So first up, we've got information, okay? You need to make your information accessible. It's important not to make assumptions about how people can receive or communicate information. The best approach is to make important information available to consumers in a variety of formats, okay? This is especially important when you consider that customers will often do research into your products before they will go and buy them. So, if you only have your information available in one way, then anybody who has an impairment, that means they can't access this. So, for example, let's say you've got a brochure, okay, and it's available on the web or as a hard copy. That's brilliant. But that is only going to be accessible to a certain number of people because you have impairments that make reading really hard, that make processing the information that way really hard, that they can't see properly. So you need to make sure the information is available in as many formats as possible, okay? So to ensure this, okay, that the information is accessible to as many people with impairment as possible, some options, okay, could include the information being conveyed orally by staff, okay? So this is talking about whether it's in person or over the phone, including in the case of people who are deaf, having a hearing impairment, the use of the telephone typewriter national relay service. Now this service is a way for people with a severe hearing impairment to be able to communicate over the phone. Other options include hard copy written material, so making sure that you've got the availability to be able to do large font print or easy, really accessible font print sort of ways of doing it. You could also have available in electronic formats, including via email, websites, online chat services, HTML, all these sort of different ways. It could also be available on a computer disk or as an audio recording as well. And depending on the size of your business or the organisation, another option as well is installing a Bluetooth audio loop in your public shop fronts to assist people with hearing aids. Okay. Also knowing where you can obtain an Auslan interpreter or Braille option of your information upon request. Okay, so these are all really easy ways. And what it is just opening your mind to different ways of conveying the same information. Because without that information, customers cannot make an informed choice. And if customers can't make an informed choice, they're not going to make a choice. Okay? People, we like to be safe when making our decisions. We don't like to waste resources. Okay? So that's information. The second one is maintaining an accessible premises. Okay, now an accessibly designed premises is great, but only if it is maintained. Okay, if it's not well maintained, it can be disastrous, in some cases dangerous. Okay, so here are some issues to be aware of when it comes to maintaining the accessibility of your premises. Okay, so first up, don't lock your accessible bathrooms or lifts whilst your premises is in use by members of the public. Okay, when certain impairments mean that you end up having very little notice, and when you got to go, you got to go. So just ensure that they're not locked whilst the premises is in use. Ensure the accessible bathrooms can be reached via a continuous accessible path of travel. Basically, don't put stuff in the way. Okay. Next tip, don't use these accessible bathrooms as change rooms or storage areas. Yes, these bathrooms are huge. Okay. When you do not have an impairment, these bathrooms look like they're massive. They're way too big for what people need, but that is not true. The Australian standards, okay, have created a bathroom that is accessible to 99% of people. As soon as you start mucking with those directions by using them, dimensions, by using them as a storage room, you're reducing the amount of people who can actually use that feature. Okay? And it's just really not a good look. You're basically saying to these people, we don't care about you, and that's just going to drive them away. Next point. Avoid constructing temporary displays or stacking goods in a manner that obstructs aisles. So, making sure that any temporary displays you have there keep your premises accessible. Okay? Make sure if you're doing a refit at any time, make sure that your counter heights, lift buttons, FPOS facilities, door handles, etc. are all within reach of a person using a wheelchair or someone of short stature. Okay? Ensure that your lift buttons don't become worn, okay? Because they often have raised tactile and braille information next to them, okay? And make sure that your lifts are maintained so that they continue to provide audible information and telling passengers what floor they've actually arrived at, okay? This is particularly important for people with visual impairments who can't actually see what floor they're on, or cell phone zombies. Make sure that you maintain adequate lighting levels throughout the premises. Provide adequate signage for people with impairment accessing or using the premises. Don't allow surfaces to become dangerously worn or slippery. And make sure that the designated parking spaces for people with impairment are maintained and a continuous accessible path of travel is actually there from the parking spot to the premises. So doing things like don't block the curb ramp, make sure there's enough room for people to turn around. It's basically making sure that as business continues to be business and things change, new products come in, and you get new staff and that, making sure that you maintain this level of accessibility. Okay? Third point or third tip, okay? Transport. So, if your business provides transport options, please be aware of the following, okay? First up, you need to ensure that information relevant to passengers with impairment is provided on the Transport Services website in multiple formats. Such information may include specific booking processes, requirements for passengers with impairment, location of the accessible bus and train stops, timing of accessible services, access features, all of these things, okay? A good example to look at is AirAsia. Okay, they have an amazing, accessibility requirements page. Really, really good, and I love the way that they've done it. It's not, like all things, it's not 100% perfect, but it's definitely the best that I've seen so far. Make sure any booking forms and mobile apps that you have are accessible to people with an impairment, okay? Using the web content accessibility advice that I'm going to be going through soon. Make sure that you provide training to frontline staff on the delivery of accessible transport to passengers with impairment. Okay, so if you have the ability to be able to take a wheelchair in your transport with you, make sure that your staff know how to stow the wheelchair, how to tie it down properly without damaging it. Okay, make sure that your staff know what they're doing, because if they don't, it's going to be dangerous, not only for the passenger, but also for your staff. And lastly, take steps to inform any booking agents, for example, travel agents, of relevant considerations for passengers with impairment. Okay, so make sure that they know what restrictions you may have or what considerations that they need to keep into account. So some of these things might be the need to demonstrate a fitness to travel, impairment equipment carriage restrictions, access features, okay? Make sure that this information is known at any place where people are likely to book your services. Okay, so transport, like I said, let people know what you have and make sure that the information is accessible. Next tip, tip number 4, mobility devices. Okay. Under the Disability Discrimination Act, it may be against the law for the owner or manager of a shop, restaurant, club or other venue to refuse entry to someone who uses a scooter or wheelchair if it is required as an impairment aid. Basically, if somebody needs the scooter or wheelchair or walking frame or walking stick to get around your business, then there's a good chance it's against the law to refuse them entry. Okay? Think about that. So a great example of this is small shops who restrict mobility due to large amounts of stock. Okay? Somebody with a wheelchair wants to come in and have a look at your stock, and you say, well, no, you can't because you're probably going to break something. That's actually not legal. Okay? So, in summary, the general tips for maintaining accessible premises mentioned earlier in the section apply, but businesses should always consider the needs of consumers who use scooters and wheelchairs as mobility aids. So this is people who need this aid to get around your shop. Now, another part around mobility devices is actually assistance animals, okay? You need to be aware that a guide dog is only one form of assistance animal and that there are other assistance animals, such as those that assist people with hearing impairments and other medical conditions such as diabetes, or assistance animals for people with limited mobility. Okay, there are many different reasons that somebody will have an assistance animal. There are also a range of animals that are used as assistance animals. Okay, cats, birds, dogs, there are others as well. I've heard of ferrets as well. Now, if you're unsure if an animal is an assistance animal, the law says it's okay to ask the person with impairment to provide some evidence that this animal is an assistance animal and has been trained to meet the standards of hygiene and behaviour appropriate to an animal in a public place. Okay? So, when you have an assistance animal, you are required to carry around identification or a certificate or proof that this animal is an assistance animal. Okay? You're allowed to ask to see that. That is fine. If they produce that, okay, then that animal is allowed anywhere within your business that members of the public are normally allowed. Okay? You cannot restrict that animal. Okay? Yeah, so basically, if you were unsure, okay, ask them for the identification before asking them to leave the premises. Make sure that you provide your frontline staff with this. Make sure that you stay aware of it yourself. It's a really bad look if you drive somebody away when they actually have a right to be there. All right, accessibility of online content. Now, we need to always remember as businesses that the internet is by far the favoured way for consumers to get information about goods and services. This research is often done prior to the consumer physically visiting a storefront, and by making your information accessible, you will encourage more customers to engage. Okay, I covered this before. We're not assuming how people access your information. Okay, this is focusing a lot on the online content though. So the following are guidelines to keep in mind when designing your online content. If you want a more in-depth look at this, okay, there is actually the Web Content Accessibility Guide. Okay, it is available for free on the internet there. Now, I don't have a link for it in the digital resource library because it is constantly being updated. It is a live document as technology improves. Okay, so I really encourage you to go there. They have some amazing resources and checklists. Okay, and it is all arrayed in a way where you can choose your level of understanding and technological competence. Okay, really, really good to look at. But here are some things to keep in mind that I've pulled from there that I think are really important. So the first up is that any material that is presented in an image-based format, such as a GIF, TIFF, JPEG, will not be accessible by some people with impairment, as screen readers cannot actually interpret the image. Okay, so if there is information contained in that image, you have a couple of options. Okay, you can use an alt text function, or you can put a description below it. Your next point, on your website, make sure you use plain fonts that are easy to read. Okay, avoid fonts that are decorative or stylized, and make sure that there is enough contrast between your text and the background. Okay, so this way the text is easy to read. Now, some designers may kick up a stink saying that this really restricts their ability to be able to make something beautiful, but I disagree. Okay, because the purpose of a website first and foremost is to provide information to your customer. Okay, having a good, nicely designed website is important for sure, but you can do such amazing things within these restrictions. Next point, don't provide content only in PDF format. Screen readers generally cannot actually read it properly. If you include PDFs, please provide the same information in a Word or HTML format. Next point, make sure that you include text descriptions for all non-text content, including all images, graphs, and using the alt text. Sorry, I already covered that one, my bad. Make sure that you provide captions and or transcript for any multimedia. So this is your audio and video content. Okay, don't set any audio or video content to play automatically when the web page is loaded, as this can interfere with screen readers. And if you're anything like me and you've got 20 tabs open at any time, if something starts playing in the background, it gets very annoying very fast. If you use a capture system to prevent malicious interference in your website, make sure that there are alternatives available, because capture is very inaccessible to certain members or certain people with impairment. To people with certain impairments. And lastly, like I said, test the accessibility of your website. Head to the Web Content Accessibility Guide. Use their checklist. Have a look at your website. See what there is you can do. And if you need to, have a chat to an accessibility professional. Okay. The last one. This is planning events. Okay. Now, we'll be covering accessible tourism and events and looking at the opportunities in greater detail in part 5 and 6 of this webinar series. These tips that I'm going to go through now are looking specifically at the physical event itself. Sorry, to go back one step, okay, to here. The last tip for you is make an accessibility tab in your website, okay? And have any accessibility information that you have to do with your products and services there in one spot, ready to go. Okay, it is the easiest and by far the best way of doing it. Okay, put all of your stuff on there. If you've got ACROD parking spots, if you've got ramps, if it's wheelchair accessible, if you have an accessible bathroom, have like an accessibility FAQ fact sheet sort of information available. It will really help anybody with an impairment. Now, going back to planning an event. So we're actually looking at specifically at the physical event here. Okay, so you need to make, if you're planning meetings, events, festivals, conferences, lectures, fundraisers, you need to take all reasonable steps to ensure that the event is accessible so that people with impairment can attend and participate, be included. Okay, consideration should be given to the following. Explain the accessibility of your venue on the invitation and registration forms, and request attendees inform you of any accessibility requirements that they have. Okay, this will give people the confidence to attend. Okay, so examples of what you can include when you're explaining the accessibility requirements is, for example, the access process or maps of the area. Explaining whether all handout materials will be available in accessible electronic format, explaining where the location of the toilet's going to be, the process that they can go through if they have any issues on the night. All of this sort of information that will help to build confidence. Okay. Additionally, in the physical venue itself, here are some other considerations. Okay, so you should make sure there's sufficient, clear, simple, and visible signage to direct people where to go. Okay. Ensure the venue is large enough and set out in a way that people with an impairment, including those that use mobility devices such as scooters and wheelchairs, can actually move freely around even when the venue is completely full. When you're setting up seating arrangements and allocations, allow people with an impairment a choice of seating, including options with a clear view of the stage and or speakers platform. This is particularly important for people who are deaf or have a hearing impairment and are going to be relying on the interpreters. Ensure that any speakers that you have at the event are aware that if they're using PowerPoint slides or videos in their presentation, they need to provide the same information in a format that is accessible for people who have a vision impairment or hearing impairment. For example, speakers could provide an oral description of PowerPoint slides, provide hard copies, electronic and audio copies of material ahead of the event, or use captioning and Auslan interpreters at the actual time during the presentation. Next tip. Brief your venue and registration staff about their responsibilities to avoid discriminating against people with impairment and about any access issues that you're aware of. Okay, such as allowing people to use assistance animals within the venue, the location of the toilets, availability of handouts and accessible formats. Okay, this information can be provided to your staff before the event in writing or in a briefing session. Okay, and lastly, and this is probably the best one of all of them, okay, give a specified staff member the responsibility for addressing any accessibility issues, okay, that arise before or during the event. And make sure that all staff are aware of who this person is. Okay, let this person, have one person be across accessibility the entire event so they know everything, and this will make the day run a lot smoother. So that's my 6 areas of accessibility with businesses. Hopefully you found something useful in there. If you've got any questions, please jump on the Q&A and let me know in there. And yeah, we will carry on from there. So, the next thing that we're going to look at is universal design. So first up, what is universal design? Okay, well, universal design is the design and composition of an environment so that it can be accessed, understood, and used to the greatest extent possible by people regardless of their age, size, ability, or impairment. Okay? So it allows them to access the environment and understand the environment. Okay? To the greatest extent possible. In short, it is when society designs with everybody in mind. Okay? Staff at all levels can actually contribute to universal design, from small changes on a single product or service to designing holistic experiences for all customers. Universal design can be implemented at every level of an organisation. Now, what is the business case for universal design? What is the business going to get out of it? Okay. Yes, it does take extra work to implement universal design, but what are you getting in return? So, when it's done right, universal design is so much more than just catering for customers with a disability. Okay. And it can have the following business benefits. First up, it can have an increased market reach. Okay, because a universally designed product will be usable, accessible, and appealing to a much wider customer base. It can have enhanced customer satisfaction and retention. Okay, a satisfied customer will tell other people about the product, service, or environment, increasing awareness and potentially creating new custom. Universally designed products can also experience market crossover success. Okay, products that are aimed at a specific target group can sometimes generate interest and demand from unforeseen markets. The OXO Good Grips range is a well-cited case study of how a specialised product design, in this case it is kitchen utensils that are designed for people with arthritis in mind, can actually generate widespread demand. These kitchen utensils are found in kitchen stores all over the world because they are so much easier to use. Okay, they're great. You don't have to have an impairment to appreciate them. It can also help create a positive public image of the organisation or business because it positively contributes to society by incorporating a universal design approach. So you have a reputation for a high level of corporate social responsibility. Universally designed products can also help to meet increased consumer expectations. Okay? In recent decades, the voice of the general public has become more prominent and influential. Universal design enables companies to design products and services and environments that more closely match consumer expectations and needs. Okay, and the last point around the business case for accessible design, or for universal design, is acceptance at first use. Okay, now acceptance at first use is referring to the fact that a customer forms an opinion about a product at first use or even first sight. Okay, a recent study suggested that internet users can take less than 50 milliseconds to judge the visual appeal of a website they have visited. Okay, if a first impression is negative, a consumer is not likely to pay for a product. If a product is simple, clear, easy to access, easy to use, then a consumer will be more likely to proceed with the transaction. Okay, so universal design, when done properly, can actually help your business in so many ways. Okay, so how can you achieve universal design? When you're talking about universal design for people with impairment, okay, the most efficient way is collaborating with and employing people with impairment. Okay, they can guide the process with their experiences. Okay, there are also 7 principal topics to note when striving for universal design. Okay, and these are equitable use, flexibility in use, simple and intuitive use, perceptible information, tolerance for error, low physical effort, and size and space for approach and use. Okay, let's have a look at these 7 a little bit closer. Actually, no, sorry, we won't be looking at those ones closer. I'll mix my notes up. Okay, so those are the 7 to look at when you're looking at universal design. And like I said, universal design is very powerful and can really, really help to boost your business. So let's look at the final way or area of need that businesses can use to attract customers with impairment, and that is diverse marketing. So first up, let me explain what diverse marketing is. Okay? 50 years ago, a company could be successful marketing only to what they called WASPs. Okay? WASP was a slang term or an acronym for White Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Okay? And a business could be successful marketing just to them because they represented most of the consumer market. Eventually, some companies realized that multicultural marketing could be successful as well. And multicultural marketing was attempted for other populations. Okay, but a company could still experience success without it. Today, however, the market is decidedly different. The Australian population has grown increasingly diverse, and if trends continue, today's minority groups will make up the majority of the population sometime around 2040. Okay? As a result, a general market strategy may already no longer be effective in some contexts, requiring organisations to diversify their marketing strategies. The thing is this diversification is needed because consumers in different cultures have different values, experiences, expectations, and ways of interacting. Even within a culture itself, such differences will be apparent between different subgroups. And I'm not talking just ethnicity, but also age, gender, profession, religion, family size, physical environment, and so much more. Okay? Diverse marketing involves acknowledging that marketing and advertising must offer alternative ways of communicating to these diverse groups. Okay? With this knowledge, diverse marketers aim to develop a mix of different communication methods in order to reach people in each diverse groups present in the market. Okay? So, why would a business choose diverse marketing? Well, first up, diverse marketing is essential. Okay, marketing is the process of how a business, product or service promotes its key features and benefits to its customers. Okay, so marketing on its own is essential. Okay, it ultimately generates sales for the business by satisfying its customers' needs. Diverse marketing is powerful because on average we are exposed to around 5,000 ads per day, ranging from TV and print all the way down to branding and sponsorship. Okay, advertising is everywhere and continues to be a powerful medium for persuasion and changing attitudes. Okay, and lastly, diverse marketing provides connection. Okay, by representing people with impairment in their advertising, companies connect more strongly with their customers with impairment, as well as their families and friends. It also demonstrates support for human diversity in a broad sense. Okay, so diverse marketing is essential, powerful, and provides connection. So diverse marketing ideas. There are three main ways to diversify your marketing methods, and these are inclusive marketing, thematic marketing, and pride marketing. Okay, let's have a look at these three a bit more in detail so that you get the idea of what it is I'm talking about. So the first one is inclusive marketing. Now, you have to excuse me one moment whilst I turn that sound back on because I have a film clip coming up. So, inclusive marketing. Now, this method of marketing, okay, does not emphasize impairment. Rather, it naturalizes it by incorporating people with impairment in images and messages incidentally as part of the general community. Okay, basically, it's just another customer enjoying your product who just happens to have an impairment. Okay, let's have a look at this example.
So how was the big wedding?
Oh, haven't you heard? No. So it's at the end of the night, everyone's on the dance floor really getting into it, you know?
Yeah, you are.
And say, this is my left wheel, and this is the bride's foot.
Yeah.
Bush.
How awful.
Well, it wasn't all bad. I left with the best man's number.
You are terrible.
Guilty.
I'm not inviting you to my wedding. No. That's it, you're off the list.
So you see, that's a really good example of inclusive marketing. It is somebody who just happens to have an impairment, sitting down at a break time, catching up with friends, discussing the wedding from the weekend before. It's brilliant. Okay, now, this method of marketing is amazing, is great for a lot of businesses because it presents little risk of criticism for what they like to term disability opportunism. It also has broader economic and social potential and is more easily incorporated into a sustained commitment marketing strategy. Okay, it is very easy to bring in. And on top of that, inclusive marketing, it has been used successfully by many large companies such as Kmart, Target, and Mars Chocolate, as we just saw there from the Maltesers ad. Okay, and the results that they've actually had from these have gone over and above what they ever expected. Okay, very, very powerful method of marketing. Okay, and one that is very easily achieved. So the next sort of theme around marketing, or the next sort of strategy around marketing, is thematic marketing. Now, in a nutshell, thematic marketing focuses on the impairment itself, usually conveying an explicit message or comment about impairment. Okay? It can be done well and may be very helpful in showcasing products or services that are specific to disability or impairment. Okay? This is a great example.
I can boost your profits.
I can deliver fantastic service.
I can maintain your garden.
I can maintain your fleet.
I can manage your finances.
I can be a loyal and productive employee.
But I can't put my abilities to work
if I'm not given the opportunity.
If you don't recognise my abilities.
If you don't have an open mind.
If you don't employ me.
So what can you do?
What can you do?
What can you do?
You can remember that.
Savvy employers.
No, it's what people can do that matters.
It's what people can do that grows Australian business.
The 4 million Australians with barriers and disabilities
have many more amazing abilities.
That should be used.
Because it's good for business.
Because it's the right thing to do.
Because every Australian deserves a fair go.
Start right now.
Call Forest Personnel on 1800-ABILITY.
So you see, that is an example of a thematic ad that's been done well. It's obviously aimed at people with an impairment who are looking for work. And like I said, when it's done right, it can be really good. Now, most companies are reluctant to consider thematic advertising for the fear that they will get it wrong or say the wrong thing, causing offence. Okay, now this is very true, and we're going to be going through some diverse marketing pitfalls that you can actually use to help avoid this backlash. Okay, and make sure that you get it right. Now, the last type of diverse marketing is called pride marketing. Okay, now pride marketing, it's focused on promoting what you have in place or celebrating any improvements that you've made around your accessibility, your inclusion. Okay, and the thing is that most businesses already have various impairment related policies and procedures in place. Things like accepting the companion card or offering additional help for people who can't fill out forms, and so much more. Okay, these are amazing initiatives and would sway a potential customer with an impairment to use your business. The problem is that nobody knows about it, and that's what pride marketing is about. Because by showing pride in your measures, celebrating any changes, acknowledging shortcomings, you're demonstrating awareness of the issues. Okay, you're showing that your customers that you're willing to adapt to their needs. Okay. This is an example of pride marketing. Okay, Geraldton, for sure, they did an amazing job of refitting it, and it's so accessible and it's so great. But they didn't think about beach access when they did it. So what they did is, instead of trying to keep it quiet and just fixing it in the background, they actually took responsibility for it. They showed pride in it. Okay, and they let everybody know about it, and it showed that they had an understanding of these issues. So, you know, next time, something to think about, next time an access issue comes to your attention, maybe use social media to acknowledge it and keep people up to date with progress. Okay, it'll really let people know that you're thinking of them and that you're on their side. All right, diverse marketing pitfalls. Okay, like we said, diverse marketing is amazingly powerful when done right. Here are some pitfalls and things to think about, okay, if you're looking at actually using diverse marketing. The first one is to make sure that all ads involving people with impairment are created in consultation with people with impairment. Okay, this will ensure that the messaging will be consistent with the intent. Okay, it's very, very important to do that. The next pitfall, okay, when actually getting the talent together for the marketing, use people with actual impairments and not actors pretending to have them. Okay, you may not be able to tell the difference, but the target audience can, and it will do you so much more harm than good. Okay, use the actual people with impairments, and when you are using them, don't use them in an inspiring context. Okay, use them as just normal people who are using your business. So, I hope you guys have gotten some information, some ideas, some tactics out of that. You know, all in all, there are so many ways that businesses can actually tap into people with impairment and tap into this market, make yourselves more money. Okay, I outlined some really good stuff there. Now, we're going to do a little bit of an open forum now, so people can ask any and all questions that they've got. And if you're not going to hang around for that, that's absolutely fine, completely understandable. All I ask is if you please head to 30footdrop.com.au/live. Scroll down the bottom there and you'll find some buttons leading to the surveys to do with the webinars. Okay, 30 seconds, 6 questions helps us immensely. Okay, so please, please, please head there and have a look. For those that are hanging around, I am going to give you 5 minutes to head over to the 30 Foot Drop live page there and enter any questions that you have into the text box below, and then I'll come back and answer them. So I will give you guys until 11:47 to enter any questions that you have. Speak to you soon. And we're back. Alright, so it would appear that we did not receive any questions today, but that is absolutely fine. Look, thank you for everybody who has watched today and taken part. I hope you got something out of it, and I'll catch you next time. So look after yourselves, look after each other. And we're back. Alright, so